A word about the sponsor of this particular video, the Wander Club. They have a great way to commemorate and remember all the landmarks, cities and countries I visit. The Wander Club have fantastic collectible tokens for each of those. I can also even personalize them on the back with, for example, the dates I visited. I can also create personalized tokens like I did for my Sky Princess trip to commemorate it. The Wander Club also sells a range of token holders to add and collect my tokens too. Find out more and get up to 30% off by visiting thewanderclub.com/TFT and use the code TFT at checkout. Hello everybody and welcome to the live stream. Thanks to the sponsor of this live stream, which is the Wander Club, as mentioned there. Blah, blah, blah. I won't go into too much detail, but this should mean that you don't see any other ads when you're watching this. So the Wander Club, these little collectible tokens, you can see I've got quite a lot there, but you heard enough in the little promo there and you, whoops, pointing them away. And that's the link there. You can get up to 30% off. So lots to get into. I'm back, of course, from Sun Princess. I'm working on the various videos for those, and I will talk more about that. If you're a patron, I did send my, as usual, on cruise update thing that I do, kind of unfiltered thoughts. Now I can see a little bit that the Wi-Fi is playing up a little bit. I'm looking at my little tracker. I look a little bit fuzzy there, but hopefully the Wi-Fi will be super duper and wonderful. So if you're watching this live, thanks very much for joining me live. Remember, write the word question in front of your question because it helps me spot the questions really easily. And of course, please do have lots and lots of chitting and chatting, which would be great. So I'm not sure why the Wi-Fi is playing that, but it's very hot here today. So I don't know whether that's got anything to do with the Wi-Fi. And I can see in the little tracker that I'm a little bit jarring to and fro. So hopefully that will improve. But the sound should be okay. If you're watching this afterwards, you can probably skip through to the questions that appeal to you, if there are any that appeal to you or whatever, because I do bring the questions up. So let's get straight into the questions. And I do apologize for the Wi-Fi. I can see that I'm freezing along this. So it was all fine as usual. It's all fine before I went live, but I'll keep charging on and hopefully it will settle down. So John left a question, which was, are Oceania's excursions as academic enriching as Viking's excursions? Simple answer, no. Viking obviously do very much focus on enrichment. It's part of their reason for being. They talk about themselves as being the thinking person's cruise. They have historians and so on. Oceania, I found they do have a speaker on board, which is a little bit more erratic, not always necessarily linked to the destination kind of stuff. And in fact, when I've been on Oceania, I've had almost the same speaker every single time. They sort of come with a big raft of excursions. So definitely not. So if you're looking for a strong enrichment side, you know, Viking is the way to go. I think you choose Oceania for different reasons. If you're going the R-class ships, of course, which are slowly disappearing, or in fact will rapidly disappear over the next 2 years from the fleet, you know, they are smaller, intimate, and of course they've got the bigger ships, Allura and so on, and Vista coming along the way, but definitely not as enriching. So I will answer this question. I won't spend a long time on it because it's been very much discussed, I guess. But Tom, good to see you here. Do you have any comments on Carnival banning the sail away crew? Was the recent Carnival Miracle review the trigger? So let me give a little bit of background perspective for those who don't know. So Jay and Dan of the Sail Away magazine and also the YouTube channel were recently banned for 5 years off all Carnival lines. They received a letter from the customer service team, which is really in the UK, and specifically called out Princess, P&O, and Carnival, I think it was, and then spoke about all of the brands on the basis that it couldn't guarantee them the vacation which they were obviously looking for. So they did speak to me actually when they first got the letter, and actually before they went public with it. I mean, the only thing I would say is obviously, first of all, Carnival or any company can ban people if they don't want them to go on them. That's what you can do. You can decide not to service people if you are a business, as long as you're not breaking any laws. So if there's discriminatory laws or whatever, I know there've been some court cases where certain bakeries have discriminated against same-sex couples or whatever. So those are, when you're breaking the laws, a different thing. But if you can decide who you're going to serve or not serve. Now, the only thing I would say is it may or may not be linked to the Carnival Miracle Review, because it may be. But however, it was just, for me, it was quite interesting, is not long before they received the ban, they had a very touchy phone call from the head of Carnival PR, who was objecting to some of their coverage around some changes that had happened related to their point of view about them introducing on Kunard charges for room service for Britannia guests. So they made some criticisms of the line and stuff. It just seemed interesting that they had a touchy call with the PR people complaining about coverage. Obviously, the Carnival Miracle Review came out, and then they were banned. There may be a connection or may not be a connection. I know Carnival has said they're not going to go into any discussion, but I think they have said on a live stream they did with Jamie that they are doing an information request. So they want to find out more of the background. I mean, obviously, what is concerning a little bit is obviously you have to respect businesses if they don't want you to go. However, if they are genuinely stopping people going from because they don't like the reviews of a business, that's very, very concerning. First of all, if you're a fare-paying passenger, which they have been on most of their cruises, if you leave a negative review on Cruise Critic, does that mean they're going to ban you? For example, I mean, if you're following the logic through, obviously from a creator perspective, that's very concerning if cruise lines are stopping you going on the cruise line because they don't want you to cover the line. Now, in the case of Sail Away magazine, obviously they have many contributors, so many of their contributors can still go on Carnival ships and they can still report about Carnival ships. So, it's not going to stop Sail Away magazine talking about Carnival line ships, but it's very concerning as a creator if cruise lines are going to start to, if this is what this is, control your ability. To be honest, I am a little bit concerned ultimately about the implications of it. What I'm also concerned about is another trend, which I think may come, which is cruise lines stopping people filming on board. So, for example, some of the airlines have started to introduce restrictions on people filming on their planes, on their services without express permission. So, for example, people who have been on Virgin Atlantic recently spoke about how in the onboard announcement, people were told that they were not able to film, and I think maybe even take pictures on the flight without express permission being given. So obviously cruise lines or whatever, that's very concerning if that, because that's another way potentially of controlling narrative. So that's my thoughts on that, and we will see where that goes, because they're obviously trying to find out more specifics around what is the real reason. Was it just linked to Carnival or review? Is it based on one review, or is there something more ominous going on, I guess is the word. So let's see, there's lots of people here, so regulars here. So Hetty's back from a big grand voyage for the summer. People talk about how hot it is. Now, it's been very, very hot in London, which has been fantastic. It was 33 degrees, which I guess is what, 90 Fahrenheit, not very good. Today's less hot. I think it's about 74, 75 in Fahrenheit, about 25, 26. It's getting a little bit cloudy. And again, by next weekend, it's going to be really sunny, which people will be very excited about because it's Glastonbury, the Glastonbury Festival next weekend, and normally they have rain. I think rain will be coming. Wimbledon starting, it always starts raining when Wimbledon starts. So we will see. Let's have a look. So calling all ports are here, which is great. I think you had a question as well. So I'll see that. Chris had a question before that. Chris, good to see you. How do you tip the crew as a solo? On AMA Waterways, they recommend so much per day per person. I was to double that as I see crew working so hard. It's not their fault. I travel alone. Chris, I don't have any set rule as such, to be honest. I do think of a little bit on the per person basis. So for example, on some Princess, obviously I prepaid because I had Princess Premier on that. And so I had prepaid gratuities, but my cabin steward was really good, very helpful, very attentive. So I sort of decided to pay a couple of dollars, maybe I think it was $5 a day. Probably if Mark had been with me, I probably would have tipped more. So a lot of it, I would probably go with what I felt was the right thing to do. Now, I know tipping is such a big hot button and can drive people crazy. But I'm trying to think. So I'm going on my next cruise. Maybe I'll bring it up. 3 weeks today, I fly to Amsterdam, although it's only 3 weeks on Tuesday that I get on. So my next trip is a river cruise from Amsterdam to Basel. So as I said, I fly off 3 weeks today. So I would probably again be thinking of tipping that more as a solo, I guess. But I mean, you're right. It's a good point, actually, because the cabin stew is probably doing about the same amount of work if there's two people there as one person. I'm phenomenally tidy in my cabin. I always get amazed. I think maybe I'm a bit too kind of anally retentive or something. But I realize when I sort of walk past, it's impossible when you're walking down any cruise ship and the cabin door's open. It's impossible to walk past without looking in. And I'm like, oh my God, I hopefully I'm a cabin steward's dream, because everything's away, nothing's out. So I've got slightly devoted there. So let's have a look. So Calling All Ports, good to see you here. Right, everybody, Calling All Ports have a YouTube channel, which is called Calling All Ports, Andrew and Diana. So we're convincing Andrew's mother to cruise again after a few years hiatus. Fantastic news. A favorite port to visit is Portofino, Italy. What do you think is the best small ship cruise line for the Med? So I guess a lot of it, I'm trying to think what lines I've been on recently with Portofino. So obviously I know are big fans of Explorer, and that's not massively small, and I don't know whether they call them Portofino. I have been in Portofino on Azamara, thinking about it now, and I've been there on Seabourn. So my tendency would be to look at, try and look at those much smaller ships if you can, depending on the budget, etc. But if you can do that sort of 700 so kind of size. However, I don't know if Viking go there, but come back to the question earlier, and depending on what Andrew's mother's looking for, Viking to me feels like a good option. But I think Portofino is, if I remember correctly, is entirely a shuttle port. So the smaller you can go, the better. So if you can go on those kind of R-class ships, so obviously we met on Oceania, some of those Oceania small ships, because obviously they're all starting to leave the fleet from next year onwards. But I would probably look at an Oceania. Again, keep it small so it's easy with that tendering process. Obviously, if budget goes, I know because I did tendering on Seabourn, that would be my thoughts. Again, because you've got the nice dining experience of both of those. Lauren is here, which I think I saw the message. I think it's Lauren that I met on Sun Princess. So hopefully that is. Oh yes, Lauren, I can see your messages. It was Lauren that we met on Sun Princess. I've heard some refer to Sun Princess as Princess's biggest failure. What are your thoughts? How can cruise lines balance attracting new cruisers versus keeping their loyal base happy? So Lauren, I think I'm right that you really liked the time on Sun. And what's very interesting, I mean, as I said, I can see I'm freezing again on the script on that there. So I apologize again for the Wi-Fi. Hopefully the sound seems to be fine. Just I'm freezing every now and again. So Lauren, in terms of Sun Princess, I mean, I think it's very interesting, and I can see why some people are saying it's the biggest failure. And I'm wrestling a little bit. I think I've got the story in terms of the script that I'm working on. I think it's very clear that it's not, in many ways, it's not Princess. And I think true diehard Princess fans will not like it. And it's very interesting because what I've noticed is, and I've gone and also dived into reviews, but all the people that I met on Sun Princess, or I met before who'd been on Sun Princess, I could see a real divide. So people who really like Princess, are diehard loyalists, find it very disappointing, partly because it's too big. It doesn't look like some princess. Things aren't where they expect it to be. It's too big, it's too noisy, it's very loud, it's very boisterous. So it's very different. Then what I also noticed is people who really like, so I met some people on Sun Princess who absolutely love Sun Princess, but they tended to be younger. Coming to your point about new cruises, often they were traveling with kids, or they were traveling with sort of multi-generational, but they definitely were younger, looking for a more hipper vibe. They weren't, a lot of people were new to Princess. So I think to me, I feel like it's a really big statement that they want to go after different people. They want to bring new people to Princess, and actually having a very different product is an interesting way of doing it. So for me, the analogy is very similar to what Celebrity did. So Celebrity obviously have their Millennium class, which is the older class, but then they have Solstice, which is not that different in reality. The Solstice bigger ships, which are very classic. Then they've got the Edge class, which is very different. It's different in feel, it's different in cabin type, it's a very different vibe. It almost doesn't feel to me like I'm on Celebrity. And I think it's quite interesting. I feel that's what Princess are doing with these Sphere class ships, is they're saying we want to go after families, we want to go after new people, we want to bring new people into Princess. If you don't like what we're doing, we've still got the old Royal class kind of ships where we do what we're doing. I did feel when I was on Sun Princess that I was almost on a ship that Princess had charted in a way. So some of the things were familiar, you know, some of the names, Sabatini's, Alfredo's, Crown Grill, and that sort of stuff were there, but it didn't feel, I did not feel like I was on a Princess cruise. You know, I had decided I wanted to test out the Sanctuary. That, you know, there's no other Princess ship has that. I felt like it was all a little bit like in Norwegian, on Norwegian Haven. The decor was very different. So that to me feels like it. The other thing that I do think is a big mistake, which is not directly related to your question, but is for some reason they just got some big things wrong. You know, launching a theater which only holds between 900 and 1,000 people for a ship which at double occupancy is 4,300. Now, on our cruise, we had 4,571 or 72, I think it was. And definitely within, I can see in the season, that's going to be way higher, closer to 5,000 if they do attract families. So I got into the shows, the production shows, because I had Princess Premier and they had reserved seating. Obviously, any cabin grade can buy a Princess Premier, but you almost needed that to get into the shows. I've met people who've been on Sun Princess, never got to see the production shows because they were too full, or people who went an hour before. But they've also made a bizarre choice where they only do 2 shows a night. They should do 3 shows a night as a way of dealing with this. They haven't adapted. The Dome, which is great, but is too small. Many of the venues, Alfredo's is too small. The gym is criminally too small. On sea days, I had to go and just leave because there was no machines or anything to do at all. So that's a failure from that perspective, that side. So, I mean, I think it's interesting. In terms of balancing new versus keeping their lore base, I feel like one of the ways you can keep your lore base is with your older ships. You know, just have, you know, they've got the Royal class, the Sun and stuff, and you bring in your new big ships. For me, it feels like Princess is on a journey though to go mega ship, younger, families, multi-generational. I mean, they did originally plan to have that big activity center, which they've scrapped on the top deck, and that's a little bit in limbo, I guess. I don't know if I quite answered your question, but it's very, very interesting. I wasn't a big, I mean, I think Sun Princess is a very nice ship. I would not go back on Sun Princess. It's too big and it's too loud. And so for me as a cruiser, if I was going for myself, as it were, but I can see people loving it and who would absolutely love it. So it's pretty great for families who want a more classic experience or multi-generational. Sherry, good to see they got. So Sherry, if you remember a while ago when I first started doing the Wonder Club collection, I did a giveaway which I promoted in here, and Sherry was actually one of the people who won that voucher thing. Just reminded the Wonder Club there /TFT, and if you use TFT at checkout, you will get up to 30% off. So let's have a look. Lucy's asking the question, did you enjoy Sun Princess with Captain Stanley Bear? I'll be on Saga Discovery, the Cornish Coast next June. So Captain Stanley Bear is this big, it's their character. And actually I did, have I got them? Yes, I have got them. I'm going to dig them out. So one of the things that I've never had when I've been on Princess before is I've never had the Premier package. I've only ever had the Plus package. But because I booked to try the Sanctuary, the Premier is included as standard. And I actually really loved having the Premier packages. And one of the things you do is you get, it includes, I don't normally pose for photos, but in the Premier package, every photograph you have taken by the photographer has a digital photo you can download. And then you get 3 individual prints, which are incredibly hard to order through the screens and the app. But I did get, to your point, I did get a couple of pictures with Captain Stanley Bear. I got this is the one I had printed out, but I never do these. I never do ever on cruises because I never buy photos. I never do these kind of thing. So it was actually quite novel for me on Sun Princess. For the first time, I was actually when the photographers went, "Do you want a picture?" Yes, I do. So Stanley Bay was good fun. And again, come back to the thing with the families and stuff. There was a lot of buzz around Stanley being around. So that's quite a good quite a good tip point. Just a reminder, write the word question so I don't miss it. Hopefully I haven't missed one. Sarah H, good to see you here again. Does anyone have any thoughts on which is likely? Oh, so you weren't actually asking me, so that's fine. Which is best snorkeling between Grand Turk and Amber Cove? So if anyone knows the answer to that, please leave that. I do not know the answer to that. I have not snorkeled in either, because when I went to Grand Turk, I just did some self-explanatory. I didn't go snorkeling, nor did I go snorkeling, because we went there when I did my group cruise. Amber Cove, I haven't cruised that. So if anyone's got that. Steinville Martin is in Tokyo. Fantastic. Moonman 547 is here. Mike and Carrie, all across in Seattle. I guess you're back in Seattle now. Great to see you there. Hopefully I will be meeting up with you in a couple of weeks, no, probably months is probably better of saying it, when I'm passed through Seattle on my way to Alaska. Will Mark be able to join you on any of the upcoming cruises, and have you convinced him to retire yet? So on the first question, the first cruise that he is going to be on with me is our Christmas cruise. So that's we've got pretty much the whole of December. We're doing an Oceania cruise. So we fly to Sydney, Australia, and then we get the ship, and I think it's about an 18-night cruise all through the islands and ends up in Papeete. So that's the only one that he's currently locked on. In terms of retiring, I think that's now off the cards, certainly for next year. There's a lot going on work-wise. He doesn't feel quite ready. He's having some really interesting cases and stuff going on at work. So I think that's basically off the cards at all. So there's no plans to retire. So I need to rethink some of my 2026 sort of plans. So yes. So I don't know what he's going to be doing in 2026 trips. We're looking at those now based on working around his time period. The only thing I would say, by the way, in terms of trips, I do have a land-based trip with Mark, where we're heading to we're flying to Las Vegas. We're taking his mum to Palm Springs for 2 weeks. Mark is a huge fan of Palm Springs. He goes there most years. I haven't been there very much. I mean, we've been 5 times, I suppose that is quite a lot. So we're taking her to Palm Springs. So there's a land-based thing in there. Tom, I know you've been very prolific with Facebook posts recently. I'll watch the chats on YouTube. But yes, it's quite interesting. There's always a delay. So for those who don't know, I do this live and it goes on YouTube, which I think most people watch I also have, it goes live on LinkedIn, which seems to start very promptly. And the Facebook one is slightly stalling. But yes, I've started to post a lot on Facebook, on my Facebook group, which is Tips for Travelers. So it's facebook.com/tips4travelers, 2 L's, remember. So yes, I'm doing a lot of that. So Jack has, thanks very much, Jack. I will put that, who is one of my channel members, has also left a super chat, which is very kind of you. Would it not be logical to build and only use ocean liners for around the world cruises, ships built for rough weather? Not necessarily. I can see your point, because generally speaking, on a world cruise, you know, they obviously try to chase where the weather's better, because obviously they want to be in warm weather most of the time. But you're right, they will have a transatlantic point, and certainly when I've been on part of the world cruise, we've hit problems with typhoons between Hawaii and, I guess, Fiji. And so I think the problem is, because the reason I think I can understand why cruise lines don't do that, even though I can understand your perspective, like if they've got more of a liner design. But line designs are pretty unique. I guess they must be quite expensive to build because of the different hulls and that sort of stuff. But in reality, the ships spend most of their time cruising. So there's lots of limitations with building a liner. So if you ever listen, there's quite an interesting podcast, which Chris Frame has done, and also Ocean Liner Designs have done, which is interviewing Stephen Payne, who designed the Queen Mary 2. And he talks about the big challenges with making liners work financially. So when he originally built it, the pushback from the Carnival Corporation is you need to have more cabins in here, because we need to make the numbers work. And that's why you have a lot of these that are really sharp in there, but you have the in-hull, I can't remember what they call them now, but they basically, your balcony is sort of cut out of the hull, and to basically get enough people in there to make it work. So making the finances are quite challenging. So actually, when you're cruising around the world, cruising for most of the time of the year, you need the ships which are just financially more appealing, both in terms of the amount of cabins, sort of the structure, building the ship, the cost of the ship, the kind of the amount of fuel and all that sort of stuff it uses. So, for example, the Queen Mary 2 could do the crossing in about 5 days, but they slowed down originally to 6, and they slowed it right down to 7. And they used to, at one point, they did it 8 to go slower, to burn less fuel, to make it more efficient. So I think that's sort of part of the reason. But I think I can understand your point. I think the numbers just make it more challenging to work. And they just, for most of the year, they just don't need it to have the efficiency of being a liner. Thomas Dean's Find Artists left. I don't know what these are called. I think they're called super chats or super things. But thanks very much. Hope, Jack, that answered your question. So let's have a look. Hopefully, I'm just looking, I'm keeping an eye on it. Hopefully it's sort of flowing a little bit better in terms of the Wi-Fi. So let's have a look. Hopefully, Dave, James Tate, you saw my original answer to the first part of the question. But your question is, have you ever been warned for honest reviews? I've never been contacted or approached by any cruise line. I've also never been stopped filming on a cruise line. I do know that a lot of cruise lines they follow me on social media and stuff, and they know when I'm on board. So, for example, I had made no contact at all with Princess about being on Sun Princess, but obviously I post about it on social media. They follow me on social media, on Instagram, and so on and so forth. And when I got in my cabin, there was, which also shows that they follow me, there was a bottle of sparkling cider, so non-alcoholic cider, because I guess some cider can be alcoholic. Anyway, and there was just a little card which said, "Have a good cruise," from the Princess PR team. So they do sort of kind of track me, but so I know that they know that I'm on board. The only time I got a comment, and it's a very minor comment, was I went for a coffee once, this is quite a long time ago now, with the lady who was looking after Oceania PR in the UK. And she had said, I'd been on Oceania not that long ago, and she said, "Oh, the MD in the UK had watched my video and had done a bit of double take, because I'd been very critical of their entertainment." And her point was, yes, but you're focusing on a small part of the video. If you look at the thing in the totality, there was lots of nice things to say. So it's a long way of answering your question, but I haven't. And hopefully because I try to be kind of biased. I don't think I've ever made any of a video where I've just gone in like for the jugular, because there's always a good side, a bad side. There's always, two sides to a story and so on. So hopefully that will help that stay, and hopefully lines will be less prickly. Let's have a look. Boca Boys, good to see you here. It's our understanding that the new Regent Prestige is the first vessel that Norwegian has full control over versus Regent itself. It doesn't appear to have the wow factor the Explorer class has. So I hadn't heard that, but I guess I had always assumed, and maybe this is me incorrectly assuming, because it's more what Carnival do, that, because the funding, I guess, from ships is coming from the corporate side, and they sort of allocate availability across their various brands. So I've had a little, so I haven't heard that, I guess, is the point. So I'll try and see what more I can find out around that, because that's quite an interesting point. But, and I'll talk about why I'm saying that in a second. I got a little brochure, because the problem with Oceania and Regent, once you've signed up, once you've been on a cruise, you have them, their hard copy mailings, I think every week I get something. They send a little booklet out, which I haven't spent a lot of time looking at. I thought it looked quite nice, but to be honest, I'd only glanced at it. Obviously, I find it more. I also not that keen that it's going up to 850 passengers. I thought it was quite interesting that they're like the big staircase things, which look quite nice, but very different. So I need to have a look at that in a little bit more detail. But what I did know, I was talking to a friend of mine, one well, a friend of mine is probably too strong a word, somebody that I know, I don't know, for a long time, who works within the Carnival group for one of the Carnival brands in the UK. And we were talking just about stuff, as you do. And she was talking about how the Carnival Corporation basically controls and decides which brands are getting ships. So as you probably know, with the Carnival Corporation, all of the new ship builds that are currently out there are all for, with I think the exception of one ship, which is going to, if I remember correctly, AIDA, is all for Carnival brand. And they basically rely on the corporation deciding which lines are going to get ships and when they're going to get ships. So it is controlled very much from corporate, I guess, who put up the funding side. So I don't know if that's how Norwegian had worked before. So it's very interesting. I will try and see if I can find out more. And if you have any more insights, that would be great to know. Caroline, thinking about a river cruise for 2026, been exploring luxury riverside cruises for the Danube. Can you recommend, or can you? So cut off there with a cliffhanger, but I have not been on them. Now, one of my patrons who I met recently on a cruise has just come back from them and sent me quite a detailed review. And also Helen and Richard, they went on a press trip with Riverside. They have a very nice video about that. But she was very complimentary about the overall experience, because obviously those ships were crystal ships. They're very beautiful ships, big cabins. Also, travel agent Sarah toured the ships and ate on the ships when they did a river cruise conference a couple of months back. And what the person who sent me the review said, you know, the ship is very nice, the food is very good. It still felt a little bit startup-like. So she felt there was some misses in the excursions, kind of let them down. So some of the slickness, especially for the price that you're paying. I did look at riverside cruises when I was planning that cruise that I mentioned. I found them very expensive. River cruising, of course, is very expensive. But as I was going on that solo, and it just was, for me, it was just too expensive. So I went on Avalon because they were also doing a nice big solo deal. But certainly I would love to try Riverside. People that I've spoken to have been on it are very complimentary. So certainly it's definitely one to have a look at. I would also, you know, in that category, you've got Uniworld as well, which are much more blingy, glitzy kind of ships. I really like Uniworld. I haven't been on them for a long time, but they are really, really good. Those are probably the two, but certainly Riverside, you know, they're aiming to be kind of the kind of top end side. So definitely, based on people I know, definitely they want to have a look at. So we have a question from See the World. Good to have you here. Again, I know you've done the best regions to cruise at different periods in the year video. Yes. Any chance of making a video for best type of cruising for particular regions, example, yacht style, Panama? That's a great idea. So I don't have, I feel like I had one on my list of thoughts, but I did one once. Let me just make a note. I'm making a note of this, my little pad, because I think it's a great idea. It's always great when I get suggestions. So this is a type of cruise by region. I was actually looking once at, which was on my list, which is kind of almost cruise line by region. You know, so for example, Holland American Princess, because they've been in Alaska for so long. But I hadn't thought about doing kind of category, because you're right, it's interesting because my sister-in-law and her two daughters were staying with us this week. Oops, sorry, I've just drawn a pen. Stop fiddling around. I'll put that down. My sister-in-law and her two daughters were here because they were doing a charity walk this weekend, which was in London. And they've only been on big ships, but they have booked to go to a very nice trip from Singapore to Mumbai, calling on lots of, you know, Bangkok, Vietnam, etc. And this is on a much smaller ship than they used to. So that's going to be a big switch over. But the reason they chose it is because, and I was like, this is a really good itinerary because they can get into lots of smaller ports. So for example, instead of just going to Colombia, is that right? No. My mind's gone blank. Anyway, in Sri Lanka, all the ships normally go to one port, but they had a different port in Sri Lanka. It had more ports in Bangkok, stuff that you can't get to on the bigger ships. So that's a great suggestion. So thanks very much for that. Steinwald, how well did the Wi-Fi work on Princess's Good from Work? It was actually really poor. Oh, not really poor, that's exaggerating. Obviously, I guess it's underpinned by Starlink. It was okay. It wasn't fantastic. Both were not. So I was on Sky Princess. I was not particularly impressed with the Wi-Fi. I could do streaming okay, but I didn't do a live stream on there, and I really struggled to upload videos. So I did one of my Patreon videos, or I tried to upload a video to schedule for the main channel, and I gave up. It just took too long. It was taking, I think I did a short 5 or 6 sort of behind the scenes video. It took 14 hours to upload. So I didn't run a live stream. Now on Sun Princess, I scrapped doing a live stream. So this is your remote work. If you've got a lot of Zoom calls and things to do, I scrapped doing a live stream because it just wasn't good enough. And I tried at different points to that. So I was not particularly impressed with the Wi-Fi. Now I had the premium package to collect 4 devices. And again, I uploaded behind the scenes video, and that took took almost 24 hours to upload. And I gave up with other stuff, but I was able to stream stuff. So I could stream stuff. So if you're talking about emails, maybe the odd Zoom call, it may be okay to do. But so the classic Wi-Fi package is Medallion Net. So that, I think I'm right in saying they only have Medallion Net. You don't have a Plus, a Max. You just have Medallion Net. Don't think there is a Plus. I might be wrong on that, but there was only one. There was only one option that I seem to remember. Because you're right, on many cruise lines you'll get the basic and then the extra. But I think I'm like 90% sure there is either Medallion Net or nothing. But I'm not sure that. But I had whatever the best was. So so be cautious. A follow-up of last question: did your opinion of Princess change after taking the Sun Princess cruise? So I think I might have sort of answered that a little bit, which was it didn't necessarily change. So I've got a video. I just sort of want to preempt. So I've got a video coming out I think it's next week, where I talk about Sun Princess. I'm actually going to be a spoiler and not spoil my video. I've got a video. It's finished. I'm probably going to do an early release thing. So I will do that. I will do that in the video. So I was just looking at some spammy comments there. Let's have a look. Francis, good to see you here, Francis. I'm considering a transatlantic cruise in the next couple of years. I'm also a solo cruiser, trying to decide between Kunard and Silversea. Which would you recommend? So Francis, the thing I would say is there are 2 sort of aspects to this. First of all, if you want to do a classic transatlantic cruise, so between Southampton and New York, most of the time your main option is going to be the Queen Mary 2, so Kunard. Silversea will offer transatlantic, but they're probably not that North Atlantic route. So there's a chance there may be. I haven't looked at the detail, but normally it's more of a repositioning cruise. So you're talking about going, it might be Lisbon or Barcelona, and it's going to Miami, or going from Miami up to the Med, for example. So they're not entirely comparable. One is sort of more, although it's going across the Atlantic, it's repositioning. So if you want to experience a true sort of classic transatlantic, then absolutely Kunard would be the way to go, because that has been doing a course for decades and decades and decades. And the ship is specifically a liner, discussed earlier, so it's designed to deal with the rough North Atlantic. So the ship is designed, but also you'll find many of the functions. So you'll find more of the Queen's Room and Britannia and stuff are much more midships than at the rear, although you've got your Princess Grill and Queen Grill more at the rear. So some of the public things are more central. So it's really designed around that. You've got more dressing up. You've got a packed program. Silversea will offer more of, it won't be as busy program. So it also would be very good value though, because people tend to, with those cruises, they not want them because there are lots of sea days and there's not a big program, so the price will be much better. So I'm doing, for example, a Silversea is my next ocean cruise, and that's a reposition cruise, not a transatlantic, it's actually a trans-Pacific. So I'm going from Alaska to Japan. Credible value for money versus their normal fares. So I would say if you want to have a true historic in a way experience, I would encourage you to look at Kunard. Now, solo cruises, they do have some solo cabins, not many, but they do have some solo cabins. Not great on solo deals, to be honest. but they do have a good solo program. Silversea, you probably will find for their transatlantic reposition cruises, you can often get solo deals for those. Quite a different experience. So Chris, I've seen a few of your videos on Explorer, but not your final yeah or nay opinion video. Yes, it's in the video. Maybe you can watch the end, Chris. It is in the video. I do talk about what I thought about them, where I thought they stacked, and whether I would book on them again or not. To summarize that, they're not as good as they think they are. I like them a lot. They think they're ultra luxury. They're not there yet in terms of service and that sort of stuff. I think you know, as the ships fill up, that is showing they're not as slick as they should be versus a Silversea or Seabourn or Regent. You know, people who rave about Explorer often were on much fewer passengers, wasn't as full. You know, they see themselves as operating in ultra luxury, so their status matching is all versus ultra luxury. I see them more as luxury, but they see themselves as ultra luxury. I thought that I liked them overall. For me, entertainment was pretty poor. Not pretty poor, was poor. They may address that, they may not address that, but that doesn't bother me so much. I liked it. I have actually booked another Explorer Journeys trip, which is actually repositioning one at the end of I'm doing sort of about a 3/4 circumnavigation on Holland America, and it gets to Miami. The next day, there's actually a reposition cruise of Explorer going back to Europe. So I booked that. So I would go back on Explorer. I would like Mark to try Explorer, but they're not as good as they think they are. And I think they probably know they need to improve. I'm sure you'll see in the video a lot they'll improve. But I did 2 videos, one of which was a review of the ship, and the second was Explorer Journeys, kind of yay or nay. Julian, have you tried American Cruise Lines? No, I haven't. Okay, so I've seen a number of reviews of the new Sanctuary and the Sun Princess. A lot of criticism about lack of shade as compared to the old Sanctuaries. What's your observation? Okay, so I assume you're talking about because they're not strictly comparable in reality. So the Sanctuary Club is obviously, you have to be in a Sanctuary Club cabin for that. So it's included in the package. You have to be in 12 premium, about 120 mini suites, and then 80 suites. That gives you access to the Sanctuary restaurant and the deck. The old Sanctuary was paid for. Anyone could go into the old Sanctuary. The new old Sanctuary sitting on Royal Class is kind of completely covered, so you could have shade. Now, I had seen that. For me, I didn't think it was a massive issue, because I went there, we had very hot sunny weather. Even on sea days, I could find areas. Now, I was admittedly this place to sit rather to line the sun, but there are quite a lot of umbrellas, and I felt there was enough space. And certainly in the videos you'll see when they come out a couple of weeks' time, because I did both on port days and on sea days. I didn't find it a big issue, but I guess maybe some of the beds were kind of beds that probably didn't have shade, but I didn't think it was a big issue. Lots of seating areas and stuff. So I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was a big issue. So, but I had seen lots of questions. And in fact, on this next point, Anaya, who also asked me about that point before I went, the group cruise getting closer, looking forward to it. So yes, it is still a way away. Let me see how far away the group cruise is. I probably got it here. So my next group cruise, which probably, I don't know any other group cruises planned after this one, which is, no, I'm looking at the wrong app. I'll probably be spending too much time doing this now. Let's have a look on the group cruise is. So the next group cruise is in 222 days away. So you're right, it is getting closer. So yeah, that's quite exciting. A lot of people ask me this. I don't have any plans to go on Ambassador Cruise Line at all. I don't have any plans. I would like to go on Ambassador line. So, but my schedule's pretty full now, and I was looking at Ambassador, trying to find some shorter cruises that they had that would fit in with what I'm doing. I don't have any. I mean, in terms of budget lines, I mean, I've done recently in the last sort of 18 months or so. I've obviously been on and reviewed Norwegian, MSC, Royal Caribbean, and Holland America and Celebrity. So coming up, I've got Holland America, more Celebrity to come, different kind of classes of ships. Obviously, Princess I've been on. So I have done those recently, Dave, but so I will, every now and again, I kind of need to go back and revisit those. Absolutely. Hopefully, Anthony, you heard the comment to answer the question earlier on that one. Okay, Kelly. I love the spreadsheet from Polaroids. Any chance you may do something similar for normal cruise lines, not ship level, but line level? So, Kelly, interesting point. So for those of you who don't know what Kelly's talking about, so a video I did fairly recently was around cruising to Antarctica, or in fact, any polar region within more of a budget. So it's not quite as crazy. So the document, so Martin Johnson from Polaroids very kindly partnered with me and developed a really nice spreadsheet which looks at ultra luxury, premium, and value. Now, obviously, it's in relative terms because when you're going to the polar regions, value is still like $500-600 per person per day. But it looked at all the different lines within that. So if you ever want to have a look at that, if you just go to the channel and search Antarctica, you'll find the video, and in there's a link to it. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember the quick link. Maybe I'll put it. Maybe I'll put the quick link in this as well. So it's a great document. But interesting you asked me this question, Kelly, because one of the things that I'm working on, or I have my list to work on, is I want to do. I'm starting with this inverted commas premium lines, because obviously it's a massive job doing it across all. So I wanted to start doing, because it's been a while since I've done it. Coming back to a question that James Tate was asking, is I do want to go and talk about by category how the lines will stack up currently. So actually, I have actually drafted out already a rough spreadsheet, starting with premium lines, having sort of been recently on Princess and so on. I'm going to do it by looking at the premium category. So I'm sort of looking at the title, what those columns would be. So I've started to scope it out. And that one will focus on the premium category. So I'm going to do Holland America, Princess, Celebrity, Kunard, Virgin. Did I say Celebrity already? And then you're right, I would like to then move on to the other categories, because it's such a vast topic that it's almost doing it by how the industry defines them. So to Dave's question, the more budget lines would be, I guess, Carnival, MSC, Norwegian, your ambassadors, and so on, Royal Caribbean. So if Kelly or you, if anybody else has any thoughts on what you'd like in those on those kind of columns that you'd like me to look at, pop those down in the comments, because that will help me as I define the spreadsheet, because I am moving on. I've got a couple of scripts that I'm working on at the moment, linked to some Princess and so on. But one of the things I talk about is I want to do a call to action to go and look at how Princess stacks up versus their direct competition. So if you have any topics that you would like in that column, please leave a comment. That would be great. Warren says his wife keeps the cabin so clean that he doesn't clean the toilet. So I'm good to know I'm not the only one. Elaine, we are going on our first cruise in January to the Med. I understand we prepay on Viking our gratuities. If we give a little something on top, is Canadian dollars or euro okay? Don't want US dollars. Elaine, in reality, crew will be very happy to get any currency. To be honest with you, I know, I'm guessing by your flag there, you don't want to give US dollars. To be honest with you, US dollars is still the preferred currency, because that is the one that the crew can use the most. Most of the crew, of course, are from Asia, countries where the US dollar is the prime currency to use. So US dollars, to be honest, is what the crew would be most delighted to get. But assuming you don't want to give US dollars, I would probably lean towards the euro, simply because with the crew being in the Med at that time, the euro is probably something, if they do stuff that they want to buy, or they're probably going to be able to find that easiest to kind of swap around. But to be honest, they would be very happy with any currency. But the easiest for them to use is US dollar. I would say the euro for when they're in the Euro season. But obviously the onboard currency is US dollar, as you probably know. Now, in terms of the prepaid gratuities, Viking have slightly different approaches based on the country that you're coming from. So if you're booking a Viking in Canada, it sounds like you've got gratuities included. In the UK, gratuities included. At one point, they weren't included in the US fares. So, you know, it differs a little bit based on country. Now, don't quote me on that because I know it keeps chopping and changing. So that's important. But yeah, so hopefully that helps, Elaine, and have a great trip. Whips Travels. Hi, good to see you here. So we met on Carol's Sun Princess. You just said you're flying to Amsterdam. What are your thoughts on taking Eurostar, which seems less hassle than an airport? So I haven't done the Eurostar. I do like the Eurostar. I used to use this Eurostar every single week for a couple of years because I used to commute to my office in Paris. I had a team in Paris. So for a long couple of years, I used to go Eurostar on a Monday, back on a Thursday or Friday on Eurostar. Now, I did toy with doing the Eurostar, but actually I live quite close to Heathrow, and I quite like building Avios points. And door to door, it's probably for me a little bit quicker, or depending how early I get to the airport, I guess. I think it's about a 4-hour. Also, when I was originally thinking this through, they had suspended running the Eurostar because they were doing works at the train station, and they stopped running the Eurostar to Amsterdam, which I think is now restarted. So yes, I did toy with it. I actually was toying with it. But also the reason, so that was one reason. The second reason is I needed a flight because I'm flying back from Basel. So as you know, it's normally more cost effective to book a return than book a one way. I didn't actually price it out, to be honest, but I do like the Eurostar. So that's great. So I did toy with it, but I didn't, for all those reasons, which hopefully makes sense. Lots of discussion about kneecaps and stuff. So I haven't quite followed that discussion. So hopefully we will see lots of people helping out on the Grand Turk on questions. Wu-Tang Life. Okay, let's talk. I was surprised more people didn't ask me about this. Are you afraid the new Carnival program will be introduced onto Princess and Holiday? So I'm going to take a very more controversial perspective. Personally, I think it makes complete sense what Carnival are doing with the rewards program from a business perspective. And I believe that it will have absolutely no impact whatsoever on Carnival, people going on Carnival. I know people noses out of joint and they're very upset. For those who don't know, Carnival are changing the rewards program. You know, at the moment, the way the reward program works across, I think, all cruise lines, is as you go, you build up status and you never lose the status. So once you hit a top tier level, you never lose it. So you might not go on them for 10 years and you keep the status. Now they are changing that because the point they're making is that they now have so many people at those top tier levels that there's just so many people. So if they have any rewards, they're kind of swamped if they have events or whatever. So they're shifting, like hotels do, like many airlines have done, into you have to keep cruising with them to hold your status. Now, airlines, when they introduced a similar thing, people were like, I'm never flying with them again. And actually, that never happened. It was perfectly fine. Because the reason that people choose to go on Carnival or fly British Airways or whatever is more than just, the business will tell them it's more than just the rewards program. So personally, I have no issue with them rolling out the program. And I would not be surprised if, as Kunard, as Carnival show, it has no impact on the business, that the corporation doesn't shift that way. Now, I know that's probably not a very popular view, but certainly, you know, Carnival will have huge amount of data on what people do and don't do, and cost of the programs and rewards and loyalty and stuff. So I'm not bothered about, personally, now I know this is going to be very unpopular, I'm not bothered if they introduce that because, for example, I have platinum status on Kunard, and I can see that that status is actually not that valuable. So if you go and check into Kunard, everyone who's Golden Princess has a priority check-in, but the priority check-in is as slow, if not slower, than the non-priority check-in, because there are so many people at the status level, because obviously Kunard's been around a long time and people have been cruising with years. So you know, some of the perks have lost their kind of value. Now, of course, I'm really enjoying the fact that I've hit status on Princess where I get free laundry and stuff. But you know, the perks are not really that big. And I'm not sure I've ever chosen. Now, again, this could be me, and people may be different. I've never. I don't think I've ever chosen a cruise line for status and perks, because I would look at where I'm going, why I'm going, what because often you get a better deal. So I think it's just, I think the way that this is going is to reflect what other travel businesses are either doing or will be doing. So I'm not bothered. Now, I know it's very, I'm going completely against what everybody says, and maybe what all of you are thinking as well. But I think it makes complete sense. What, you're rewarding people for staying loyal and being loyal. Now, you could argue about the different cutoff points and the levels and stuff. And for example, what BA have, other airlines have, is they have, for real, true, dedicated people who've been doing it for ages, they do have a grandfather point. So for example, in British Airways, they have a permanent gold. It's a lot of tier points you have to be to get there. But then you hold that. And it feels to me like, there probably are people who, because Carnival is obviously a very old cruise line, it feels to me like that's a missed trick, that there may be truly people who have been with you for a very, very long time, that you may want to grandfather something there, which also, again, makes it more aspirational. I also think, if I understand the rewards program, I quite like the idea that you're going to be able to use points to buy things, redeem things, which to me makes the program more valuable. But anyway, I know I'm probably a minority, and probably going to blast me for my views. But it's going to be interesting to see what settles. But there's no evidence from travel companies that I've seen that have changed the program, that it's actually affected their business. The sad reality, no, it's not the sad reality. The other reality at the moment, rightly or wrongly, is cruise lines are very focused, which often is the wrong thing, are extremely focused on new to cruise. And come back to the question we had a little bit about Sun Princess. Ships are sailing at 108 to 110% capacity, so demand is not a huge issue in reality. And cruise lines are very keen to get new to cruise. Of course, if you're coming new to cruise, you're coming with a new program and you're not as bothered. I think the sad thing, of course, I guess what people are feeling is there's less recognition of loyalty. But, do people really, and maybe people do, really stick with the cruise line only because of loyalty? No, they go because they like the ship, the ambience, the crew, the food, etc. I know that's going to be unpopular, but anyway, that's what I thought of that. Okay, here's an interesting question. Good point. Elizabeth Hurley, I guess not the Elizabeth Hurley. I'm sure you get that confused all the time. Hopefully that gets you some nice upgrades and things when people see Elizabeth Hurley's coming to stay or arriving, that people get the Elizabeth Hurley upgrade. Do you clean your cabin with cleansing products or disinfectants, or simply tidy up? What are your thoughts on common area cleanliness with part? So no, I don't actually physically clean. Now, I know some people will do things like take disinfectant wipes and they will wipe down some of the much touched areas like the remote controls and things. I actually don't do that, but I can see why people do that, because those are the things that, if germs are going to be around, I don't do that. I'm just incredibly tidy, but I don't clean stuff as much. In terms of common area cleanliness, so certainly, Elizabeth, one of the things one of the things that the crew are constantly cleaning, constantly wiping down stuff, because obviously norovirus is a massive concern for cruise lines, and it's very disruptive if they get it. So constant cleaning, constant wiping down. Elizabeth's asking me another related question, which is why I see that. What books? I have to admit, I am appallingly bad. I haven't read books for ages. I'm obsessed. I watch shows. I've become one of those awful people that downloads loads of shows of Netflix, Amazon Prime, stuff from YouTube. I haven't read books for ages. The books that I do read on a cruise are all guidebooks. So you might not see them, but all my books on my bookshelf are all books about places. So the books that I read are, so if I'm going on a long voyage, I often take the books around the places I'm going. So I'm a terrible person to suggest. So please, if people have better, good suggestions, please do that. Tim asking me a question. I'm a travel advisor planning to start a YouTube channel. Fantastic. Do you have any tips for beginner YouTubers in the cruise space? So Tim, I do actually. I'm going to make a little note. I will leave a link if I can find it in the notes. So maybe give me 5-10 minutes, or even come back tomorrow. So I was once asked a similar question. So I did a podcast thing. It was a video, being like a video podcast thing, where I gave tips on that. So I will try and find that, and I will leave that link. But Tim, my biggest, I'll give you a couple of quick tips. First of all, the thing I would say is think a lot about who your channel is for. So almost in your mind, write down a description of who your target audience is and what they need. And every video you make it for those people. So be really clear about who it is that you're watching. So is it I don't know, people in a certain area, a certain age, a certain attitude, but think a lot about what they're looking for from an attitudinal perspective, not just demographics, whatever. So be very clear about that. Secondly, think about what are you uniquely bringing? What is different about? What are you going to talk about that's different? So I use an analogy, Tim, for example, is a new ship comes into service, Icon of the Seas, Queen Anne, and there's a gaggle of bloggers, vloggers will all rush off and go on that ship. And most of them will make exactly the same video, saying exactly the same things. So the key thing is, like, what are you uniquely bringing? What are you, bear in mind, you know who your audience is. What are you bringing that's really different, that will talk to them and address what they need that no one else is doing? Now, it could simply be as much as it's your experience. So underpinning it could be your fact that you're a travel advisor of X years, or your travel advisor experiences, specializes in X, Y, Z, and that's what you bring to it. So that's that part. The third thing is think and construct videos that have watch time. So once you launch your channel, you'll have some videos that work, some that don't work. But the most important thing of all is watch time. So look at what percentage of the entire video people watch, because that will determine whether YouTube suggests your videos to other people or not. Watch time. So you're also going to learn from that. You'll watch when people are dropping off. You'll see the graph there. Okay, why did they drop off there? Why didn't they stick with you? So you want to construct a story or something that keeps people watching. Watch time is the most important thing of all. And there's many other tips, but those kind of are the fundamental tips. But I'll try and find that. I'll get much more. Whatever you do, Tim, do not focus on subscribers. Do not ask people to like and subscribe. I have 477,000 subscribers or something, to something million views a month. I have never asked people to subscribe. People on YouTube know how to subscribe, and if they're going to subscribe to you, they will subscribe to you. Do not waste that time asking for that. Right, so we've run out of time theoretically, but I'm going to quickly answer a couple of quick fire questions before we wrap up for today. Bob, fun question. Do you play the trivia bingo games on ships? No, I don't, but I do like to go and watch them. I did play trivia for the first time properly when I was on Paul and Carol's cruise, group cruise. I think I won 3 prizes on that, so I probably should play it more. So I don't tend to play those, but I often go and listen and watch. And often when I'm on a cruise, I'm thinking, I need to video the trivia. So I like to watch. I like to watch those. Jack, yes, I did talk about the bands. Sherry is going on the Rhodes Scholar Cruise, fantastic, with a theatre expert. Have you done anything like that? I haven't been on that, but I have been on Queen Mary 2, where they had a Broadway producer on, who gave the most fascinating series about how shows are funded, how the cost of shows and why Broadway is so expensive, how shows are promoted, and that sort of stuff, which is fantastic. Sam, do you plan on selling Burgess? Hopefully next year. I'm looking at I want to go on Brilliant Lady, so it's not going to be until about October next year. So that's kind of penciled in. I haven't booked that. Haven't booked that one yet, but yes, but it is a way. Right. So I've kind of run out of time. So Don is here, which is good. Which is good to see you, Don. Those who don't know, Don's Family Vacations, huge big YouTube channel. Runs lots of group cruises as well. Thanks everybody for joining. I will be back next Sunday for a live stream. I will have a look and see if there's any questions that I've missed, but hopefully you'll join me there, and look forward to seeing you next week. Just a reminder that this week's sponsor, other way there, the Wonder Club. You're probably going to see a little video on the way out. Have a fabulous rest of the weekend, and hopefully I will see you next Sunday. A word about the sponsor of this particular video, the Wonder Club. They have a great way to commemorate and remember all the landmarks, cities, and countries I visit. The Wonder Club have fantastic collectible tokens for each of those. I can also even personalize them on the back with, for example, the dates I visited. I can also create personalized tokens like I did for my Sky Princess trip to commemorate it. The Wonder Club also sells a range of token holders to add and collect my tokens too. Find out more and get up to 30% off by visiting thewonderclub.com/TFT and use the code TFT at checkout.